And we are live from South Carolina in the United States. Welcome back, everyone, to Priceless Takes, episode 48. I am your host, Luka Price, and joining me today is no one. We're just doing a solo show. Not to worry, the show must go on. The show will always go on. What a weekend we had in the NFL, everyone. Everything was going on. We had major upsets, we had some more injuries, and we have more uncertainty, particularly in the American Football Conference and the AFC. The NFC, the picture seems to be a bit clearer, except for at the top. Up the top, record-wise, there's a lot of things going on. I think there's one clear-cut winner in the NFC. I want to hear what you guys think about that. You could feel free to comment on the Instagram post what you think the top team in the NFC is. I'm rolling with the 49ers, but we're going to talk about the two other teams in the NFC that are competing right now. They versed each other last night on Sunday Night Football, the rematch. The second time these two faced this season, NFC division rivals, the NFC East Dallas Cowboys, who hosted the Philadelphia Eagles last night in Dallas, Texas. The Cowboys came out on top with a 33-13 victory, stamping their authority over the Philadelphia Eagles and stamping their authority once again over AT&T Stadium, where they have now won 15 straight games. And I hate to tell everyone, but I said this was going to happen. My score prediction was 32-20. They did me one better. They did 33-13. They won by not a far greater margin, but a greater margin than I anticipated. I thought Philadelphia really had more to show in this game. I still thought Dallas would win comfortably, but I didn't think it would be this comfortable. Dak Prescott overall for the game was 24 of 39, 271 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 1 fumble lost. Jalen Hurts on the other side was 18 of 27 for 197 yards, no touchdowns by passing or by rushing, no picks, 1 fumble lost as well. And turnovers was the story for most of the game, guys. Although the Dallas offense was explosive, the Philadelphia Eagles had 3 turnovers for the game. 1 by Jalen Hurts, 1 by Devontae Smith, and 1 by A.J. Brown. And when your best 3 players on the offensive side of the football are turning the ball over like that, you're going to lose. And it's as simple as that. And if I'm being honest, all 3 of these turnovers really came down to lack of awareness of what's around them. Jalen in the first quarter, and then followed by A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the last drive of the game, really, for the Eagles. That really sealed the deal at any sort of comeback. But credit to the Dallas defense. They have been absolutely balling under Dan Quinn. They are hungry for the ball. They tackle hard and they fly around the field. They are a top 3 defense in the NFL when it's all said and done. They are those boys on defense. Stephon Gilmore, despite A.J. Brown having 9 for 94 receiving last night, Stephon Gilmore, the cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys, we know what he brings to the table. We know the resume that he has had in New England. So he took it to A.J. Brown. Allegedly, according to the reports from Gilmore, A.J. Brown called him old and it lit a fire inside of him. And he took it to A.J. Brown. We know A.J. Brown had decent numbers. They're still not A.J. Brown numbers, though. But Stephon Gilmore got the better of A.J. Brown on a number of occasions throughout the contest. And Devontae Smith on the other side, he had 5 for 73. He still had an impact, but both of these two players with the fumble. On the Dallas side, we saw Jake Ferguson, the tight end, getting his first real shot at the starting job this season, go 5 for 72 yards. CeeDee Lamb went 6 for 71 with a touchdown. A quiet game for CeeDee Lamb in terms of the numbers, but he still had the impact, and he did everything he needed to do. Same with Jake Ferguson, who yards after the catch was a spectacle to watch. He has really come into his own for the Dallas Cowboys this season. But the Philadelphia Eagles failed to score an offensive touchdown, which is a big, big concern. We saw last week what happened. They only were able to score 1 offensive touchdown for the game in the 19-42 loss to the 49ers. They only scored 1 touchdown total. This is a defensive touchdown, which came on a scoop and score in the third quarter. Dak turned the ball over. This is the one blemish he really had for the game. There were some throws here and there he probably could have made. Obviously, his yards, his completion percentage, 24 of 39. It's good, not great. But Dak Prescott did everything he needed to do to win the game, and I was impressed by some of the throws he was making, particularly on third down, especially in the first half of the football game. He made some very impressive throws on third down, but the Dallas Cowboys rushing attack 138 yards to 106 yards for Philadelphia. Passing, Dallas also led 256 to 218 and 74 total plays to 52 in favor of the Cowboys, 36 minutes of possession to 23 for the Eagles. And it comes down to the turnovers, but it also comes down to the fact that Dallas were able to sustain their drives from long periods of time, and the Eagles defense could not get off the field on third down. Now, the key stat that I just read for you there, 138 rushing yards. I say it game after game, when the Eagles have big games, they cannot stop the run. We saw it in the Super Bowl last year. We saw it last week against the 49ers. We saw it this week against the Dallas Cowboys. They were able to get the rushing game going at home, and this is one of the reasons why they won the football game, because they were effective. I understand the Eagles had 106 rushing yards themselves, but when you take into account that Jalen Hurts he had less than 200 passing yards, they need to have more rushing yards than that. They really didn't have a whole lot of plays. One of their field goals came off a fake punt, which was very well executed. So aside from this, you take out the fake punt, you take out the scoop and score, the Philadelphia Eagles offense scored 3 points for the entire game. Now, that is not acceptable. Jalen Hurts, dare I say, looked rattled last night from what the Dallas Cowboys defense was throwing at him. Now, I said this in the lead on Friday's episode, that the last time Jalen Hurts came to Jerry World, to AT&T Stadium, he did not play well. Just like he did not play well last night. He was forced to stay in the pocket. He was not able to work outside the numbers, and he was afraid. He was rattled, and I don't know how better else I can say it, but it's 2 straight weeks in a row now. Jalen Hurts last week, I wouldn't necessarily say was rattled. I think the 49ers really just took it to the Eagles. But this week, I would say Jalen Hurts was rattled. He fumbled the ball on their opening drive, and this really carried on for the rest of the game. When your leader, they want Jalen Hurts to be the guy in Philadelphia. This carried on for the rest of the game. If Jalen Hurts doesn't fumble on that opening drive, I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles win, but I think it has the potential to be a very different game than what it was. I think it would have been closer, potentially my original 32-20 scoreline. Maybe I give the Eagles a bit more in this game, considering the fact that they had the first drive of false. Dallas had the first drive of the game. Philadelphia came back on their first drive with the fumble. If he doesn't fumble there, I think that it sets a different tone for the game, especially if they score a touchdown and go 7-7. But that's the story of the game. They couldn't even get in the red zone. They got in the red zone one time. They were 0 for 1 in the red zone. Dallas was 3 for 3 in the red zone. They were clinical when they needed to be. I was very impressed with the way the Dallas Cowboys dominated last night, and which I predicted they'd dominate, and in reality, they did dominate. Now, bigger picture, Dallas moves to 10-3. Philadelphia dropped to 10-3. So, 3-way tiebreak in the NFC, 2-way tiebreak between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys for the number 1 seed. Currently, Dallas holds the tiebreaker. San Francisco, who also sits at 10-3, holds the number 1 seed tiebreaker. And now, because they have both beaten Philadelphia and the Cowboys, they control their own path to the 1 seed. Looking at the schedules coming up, I would definitely say Dallas has the hardest schedule. We have the Bills away, the Dolphins away in back-to-back weeks, come back home to face the Lions, who are in a weird situation right now after losing to the Bears on the weekend. And then they have the Commanders away. So Dallas Cowboys could easily lose 2 games. That'll take them to 12-5 on the season. They're not going to get the 1 seed doing that, because Philadelphia have the Seahawks away, the Giants and the Cardinals at home, and then the Giants away. They play the Giants 2 times in 3 weeks. Realistically, Philadelphia should be winning all of these games. Now, I do say there's a chance they lose next week. I didn't get to watch as much of that San Francisco game as I wanted to yesterday against the Seahawks. My main focus was on the Buffalo Bills Kansas City game. But from what I could see in between, Drew Lock had a good game for them. Now, obviously, San Fran seemed to have the number over Seattle. They've beaten them how many times? I can't even begin to count. But Drew Lock played well. Now, whether he plays next week, is it good enough to beat the Eagles? I don't think so. Even at home for the Seahawks, I don't think so. The Eagles need to win this game. But I said weeks ago the Eagles needed to have some losses because they were playing not up to the level that we are accustomed to seeing Philadelphia play. And they were still winning games. And it was creating a false narrative that this team is better than what they are now. They've had two crushing losses. They've had a gauntlet of a mid-season schedule. Now they get to the back end of the schedule. I believe Philadelphia can still make a push. I still believe they will get the number 2 seed in the NFC. And when both teams are healthy and when both teams are at their best, I still believe the Philadelphia Eagles are a better team than the Dallas Cowboys. In my heart of hearts, I believe they are a better team than the Dallas Cowboys. Now, obviously a home playoff game matters. If they lose, if they don't get the number 1 seed, I don't think they go into Dallas. And I don't think they win a playoff game in Dallas. But I do think the Eagles are still better than the Cowboys. But the way that Jalen Hurts is playing right now, they're not going to beat the Cowboys, I believe, even if they have a playoff game at the Link. Now, listen, we're going to have to see how Jalen Hurts plays in these last 4 games. But I do believe that when fully healthy, the Eagles are still a better team than the Cowboys. And I still think they have what it takes not to get to a Super Bowl this year, because I believe it's going to come down to the 49ers, really. I don't believe the Cowboys or the Eagles can beat the 49ers. But I do think the Cowboys have a better shot of beating the 49ers if I had to give them one, which makes for an interesting matchup because if the Eagles end up getting ahead of the Cowboys, I don't think the Eagles have match up as well against the 49ers as they do against the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys match up a lot better against the 49ers. They can give Purdy a lot more different looks than we're used to him getting. Now, the 49ers have the Cardinals away, the Ravens at home, the Commanders away, and the Rams at home. Now, I anticipate they really should win all of those games. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if they lose to the Ravens, but at this point in the season, I think they really need to be beating the Ravens, which could be a potential Super Bowl matchup for all I can see right now. Now, listen, that's it for the Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, Dallas are playing better. Right now, Dallas is the better team. But I believe Philadelphia are better than the Cowboys when both teams play at their best. And that's all I'm going to leave it at from here. I will switch gears to the other game we talked about on Friday, David and myself, the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, Buffalo win a nail-biter, 20-17. Kansas City fall to 8-5 on the season, while Buffalo gets to 7-6. Kansas City now only have a 1-game lead in the division over the Denver Broncos. So we will see how it works out for them. But again, 20-17, my scoreline was 27-20, so it was lower scoring than I anticipated. Although the Bills did not get the 20, although I had the Chiefs, getting to the 20. Lower scoring, a lot more of a defensive battle. A lot more of a defensive battle than I thought. I still thought it would be a defensive battle, but I thought the offenses would put points on the board. And the way that Buffalo started this game, I thought they were going to put points on this board. When I saw Buffalo go up 14-0, I thought my 27-20 scoreline was going to work out perfectly. But Buffalo got shut down in the second half, frankly speaking. They only scored 6 points in the whole second half, 2 field goals. Now, Allen for the game, Josh Allen, 23 of 42, 233 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's 9 straight games now that Josh Allen has thrown an interception, which is the longest streak in the NFL since 2015, where Peyton Manning had his interception streak. It also marks 15 of his last 17 games, Josh Allen has also thrown an interception. Now, Mahomes for the game, 25 of 43, 271, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Like I just said, the Chiefs fell in an early 14-0 hole. The Chiefs' drives in the first half started off interception, punt, touchdown to end the drive, which gave them the momentum into the second half, where they scored a touchdown on their opening drive of the second half. Now, the big story of the game, 2 straight weeks for the Chiefs now in controversy. Obviously, last week with the Green Bay Packers with the Marquez Valdez-Scantling pass interference, no call. This week, go-ahead touchdown, 1 minute 12 to go on the clock. A spectacular play from Travis Kelce, who throws a lateral to Kadarius Toney off his reception, who goes for a touchdown, which is later called back because Kadarius Toney was ruled offside. He lined up in the neutral zone. And we saw in the replay, you could see that Kadarius Toney was lined up in the neutral zone. Now, listen, there's been a lot of backlash over this play. Obviously, we saw what Mahomes did on the sideline. He was absolutely furious. And if I'm being honest, I think that this outrage from Mahomes is a lot deeper than most people are giving it credit for. Because this has been the most that Chiefs offense has struggled in the Patrick Mahomes era for Kansas City. The offense has not struggled this much. The lack of weapons they've had has not been this much. Even last year, they still were able to get their receivers the ball, and they still had Juju Smith-Schuster, who, look, he would still be a difference maker for them, I believe, this year, because Patrick Mahomes elevated his game to another level, and we saw him in the Super Bowl. He was their leading receiver for the Super Bowl with 79 yards, I believe. Now, listen, he has a big loss. Obviously, we've seen Rashee Rice step up into that Juju role, but the combination of both of them is something that they really could use. And also, if they had a receiver, we know what happened. We know Tyreek Hill's not there anymore. But if they had still a B-plus level receiver, which maybe Rashee Rice could turn into that. But Mahomes knows the Chiefs struggling. And I think that this outrage not only was because of the call, which I believe was the right call. I don't actually know why Mahomes was as mad as he was. Now, I think from what I've been reading, what I've been listening, I believe when you line up as an offensive player, you're supposed to check with the referees and you can check if you are lined up correctly, which is, to my understanding, is what most offensive players do. And apparently, what Mahomes was saying is that the referees are supposed to tell the wide receivers if they are lined up in an offside position. Now, from me looking at it, Toney was lined up so far offside. I don't think the refs need to tell him that he was so far offside. Like, you couldn't even see the ball because of where Toney was lined up. Now, that's just as much as Toney's fault as anyone. Like, he's the one that lined up there. I don't think it's on the onus of the refs to tell Toney to get back when he is right there shadowing the football, and Toney didn't bother to check. Now, I don't know the exact rules. I would love for someone to tell me the exact rules. But from what I can see, Toney didn't check with the refs, and he was lined up so far offside that it was a blatantly obvious call for the referees. Now, I understand if Toney checked with the official, he was offside. The official said he was good, and then the flag got thrown. But the reality of the situation is the flag got thrown right at the start of this play. It wasn't like they saw the touchdown happen and then they threw the flag and said, oh, well, Toney's offside, because that just simply wasn't how it happened. Now, he said it's embarrassing for the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, and I think Mahomes should be embarrassed with his sideline antics. But like I said, I think it goes deeper than this. I think deep down Mahomes knows the Chiefs are in a bit of a panic mode right now. They've had a couple of losses, back-to-back losses, and I don't know. The way I see it is the Chiefs are not going to get the 1 seed. The odds to get the 1 seed now are particularly low, especially if the Dolphins win tonight, because then the winner out of the Ravens-Dolphins game would get the number 1 seed. The Dolphins play Tennessee tonight. I think they win that game comfortably. But I look at these two teams. The Buffalo Bills put themselves back in the playoff race. A loss today would have probably eliminated them, at least mathematically. But they have the Dallas Cowboys at home, the Chargers away, the Patriots at home, and the Dolphins away. While Kansas City have the Patriots away, Raiders and Bengals at home, and then the Chargers away. Now, listen, I know the Denver Broncos are right behind them. Do I think the Denver Broncos catch Do I think they catch the Chiefs? Absolutely not. I do not think the Denver Broncos catch the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs end up with the 3 seed, depending on what happens with Jacksonville / Houston / Indiana. But listen, will this resurge the Bills? My answer is no, because I still think they're too inconsistent. I don't think they can find late season form. I know that they love Sean McDermott, or at least it appears that way. had a big post-game speech. Obviously, Sean McDermott had his own fair share of controversy with the 9/11 remarks that he made back in 2019. Look, at the end of the day, I don't think Sean McDermott's the right fit for this team. I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl with him. They're not going to get far in the playoffs, and there seems to be a mental block with Sean McDermott. They might love him as much as they love him. There needs to be a new face in Buffalo. He is not going to keep his job after this season unless he can pull off a miracle. Which do I think is going to happen? I cannot see this happening. And that's really it for the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think either of these teams are going to win the Super Bowl. I think there's more teams coming through the AFC now. Mahomes needs more weapons, which is sad because this is the best defense he's had in his tenure as the Chiefs quarterback. So Kansas City need to do some work. The Bills need to do some work. And now I want to get in to the AFC playoff picture because it is going absolutely gangbusters right now. 3 teams, including the Kansas City Chiefs, sit at 8-5. And an additional 6 teams, including the Buffalo Bills, sit at 7-6. Now, obviously, we have the Baltimore Ravens who had their win over the Rams on the weekend. They sit at 10-3. And the Dolphins can also move to 10-3 if they win tonight against the Tennessee Titans. Now, here are our teams. I've put it all out. I'm putting it all out on the table. Okay, we have the Chiefs who sit at 8-5. The Jags and the Browns, who both sit at 8-5. Obviously, the Chiefs and the Jags are at the top of their division. The Browns occupy the 5 spot in the wild card round. Now, then we have the Steelers and the Colts, who are the 2 teams currently in the playoffs with the other 2 wild card positions. They sit at 7-6. Also sitting at 7-6, who is out right now, if the season ended today, is the Texans, the Broncos, the Bengals, and the Bills. Now, absolute chaos in the AFC right now. Look, I look at these schedules and I look at the Browns. I think the Browns, who do they have? They have the Bears at home, the Texans away, the Jets at home, the Bengals away. I think the Texans and the Bengals are both danger games for them, but we are uncertain with what's happening with the Texans right now. They got the brakes beat off of them by Zach Wilson. Yes, you heard me correctly. Zach Wilson beat the absolute brakes off of the Houston Texans yesterday. CJ Stroud had his worst game of the season, maybe apart from the game against Bryce Young. But the Texans are very, very inconsistent. Now, I don't know how Stroud left the game with a head injury. I don't know his status. They haven't reported it yet, but obviously the loss of Tank Dell is huge. However, when it comes to the Jets defense, they have Sauce Gardner, who's a top 2 cornerback in the entire NFL. He shut down Nico Collins yesterday, who we saw the week before against the Broncos have 191 receiving yards. So I'm going to take this as an anomaly because we've seen what the Jets defense has done to quarterbacks this season. I tried to tell David what the Jets defense has done to the best quarterbacks. They've beaten Hurts. They've nearly beaten Mahomes. They beat Josh Allen 1 time at least. 9 interceptions between those 3 quarterbacks. CJ Stroud had a very, very, very bad game on the weekend. Obviously, he left the game early with head issues, but I take this as an anomaly for the Houston Texans. Then I look at the Steelers, who have lost to the Patriots and the Cardinals in back-to-back weeks. They have the Colts away, the Bengals at home, the Seahawks away, and the Ravens away. They at least lose 2 of those games. They at least lose to the Seahawks and the Ravens. So that's going to put them at 8 losses for the season at a minimum. Then we have the Colts, who also sit at 7-6. Steelers at home, Falcons away, Raiders home, Texans home. The Falcons are fighting for a playoff spot. Now, that's a dangerous game for the Colts away in Atlanta. The Texans at home, assuming CJ Stroud's head injury is nothing too serious, is also a very tough game for them. Now, then you have the Texans. Titans away, Browns at home, Titans at home, Colts away. I think they win both games against Tennessee. The Cleveland game's a danger game for them because we've seen what good defenses can do to CJ Stroud with the Jets this week. And then the Denver Broncos. Lions away, Patriots at home, Chargers at home, Raiders away. Bengals, who also sit at 7-6. Vikings at home, Steelers away, Chiefs away, Browns at home, and the Bills, Dallas at home, who I just said, Chargers away, Pats away, Dolphins at home. So much to unpack. Now, realistically, I do think the Cleveland Browns are going to get in the playoffs. So that leaves 2 spots for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams. 6 teams fighting for 2 spots is absolutely insane. I look at each team. I look at the Bills. I think they're too inconsistent. I look at the Bengals. Could they do it? Jake Browning has played stellar over the past 2 weeks. However, currently the Bengals are 0-4 in the division, which is going to be not the best scenario for them, particularly if they end up in a tiebreaker with the Steelers or the Browns. That's very not good. However, they do verse both of those teams again, so they would win the head-to-head, but they've also lost to both of them this season too. And I believe that the Cincinnati Bengals would still sit at the bottom of the AFC North due to both of those losses to the Ravens, because we've seen the Steelers and the Browns both beat the Ravens this year. So that makes the path very, very difficult for the Cincinnati Bengals to get in the playoffs. They would essentially have to win out, and they would end up sitting at 11-6. If they have even one loss, that would make their path to the playoffs extremely difficult. I look at the Broncos. They beat a Chargers team who's just defeated. Okay, we saw them lose to the Texans the week before. We've seen some very impressive performances, but the Broncos, I don't know. When I look at their schedule, I think they beat the Chargers again. I think they beat the Patriots at home. The Raiders away, they've lost 9 out of their last 10 games to the Raiders, and that's not good. The Raiders scored 0 points on the weekend. They can easily go to Las Vegas and turn that around. The Detroit Lions, they just lost to the Bears this past weekend. They're going to be hungry. The Detroit Lions, I think, are a very similar team to the Houston Texans, the way that I look at things and the way that they match up against the Broncos. That's not an easy game for Denver. That's going to be their 3rd straight game on the road. Now, I do think they can win those last 3 games. We'll talk about it in a second if they will win. But realistically, the Broncos can only have 1 loss. All of these teams at 7-6 can really only afford to have 1 loss. So this brings to the big question. Who is going to make the playoffs? Okay. The Chiefs are in. We know this. The top 4, I still think the Jags win the division. And even if they don't win the division, I still think they make the playoffs. Because Trevor Lawrence's ankle isn't ideal, but they're still a good enough team to make the playoffs. Hopefully his ankle is fully healthy. Now, the Jags are in. The Chiefs are in. Obviously, the 2 at the top are in. The Browns, I think, are in. The Steelers and Colts currently both occupy those 2 spots. I think they're both out. I don't think they're going to do it. I saw the Colts get whitewashed by the Bengals this weekend. I think they're going to have a late season collapse. Great what they've done without Anthony Richardson, with Shane Steichen, who's had an incredible. If they do make the playoffs, he should be up there for Coach of the Year. The Steelers are out. They've lost 2 back-to-back games. I do not see them beating the Seahawks and the Ravens. That's 8 losses. They're out. The Texans. I think the Texans are in. Okay. The Broncos. I think the Broncos are in. Which a lot of you might be saying, whoa. How are they going to get in? The Bengals and the Bills are both right behind them. I think the Broncos are in. I think the schedule matters. And I think that the Broncos are in based on the way they've been playing. They can grind out wins. We've seen them grind out wins. If they were able to grind out that win last week against the Texans, they'd be sitting at 8-5 right now, and they'd be in there. They'd nearly be a lock to make the playoffs. But I still like what I see. I still think they are in. The Bengals. I think they lose to the Chiefs away. I would be shocked if Jake Browning manages to go into Arrowhead, assuming his thumb's okay, and beats the Chiefs. The Browns at home, anyone's game. The Steelers away, even with Trubisky, still anyone's game. I think they beat the Vikings at home next week. The Bengals, like I said, would essentially have to win out to make the playoffs. They wouldn't have the tiebreaker against the Browns. They wouldn't have the tiebreaker against the Steelers. Now, the Bills, I think they're out. I don't see them beating the Dolphins away. Also, with 1 loss, they don't have the tiebreaker with the Bengals. They don't have the tiebreaker with the Broncos. That's 2 right there. Bengals out, Bills out. And believe me, it pains me to say the Bengals out because they're playing some good football. But if you're putting me with a gun to my head, I'm telling you the Bengals are out. That might have been an inappropriate reference. Maybe I'll retract that. But if you make me choose right now, and you put me on the spot, the Bengals are out, the Bills are out, the Colts are out, the Steelers are out, the Texans, the Broncos, the Browns are going to be the 3 wildcard teams in the AFC playoffs this season. You can book it right now. That's just the way I see it. I think they're going to get the job done. Simple as that. Now, that is all, ladies and gentlemen, for Priceless Takes, episode 48. Thank you for joining with me today. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and our other social media platforms, which include TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify, if you're not listening to Spotify currently through this episode. We post lots of engagement, lots of followers, lots of followings, lots of posts every day, daily sports content. Make sure you get on the social media right now. Next episode, listen, I'm going on break. This is my last day at my school right now. So I will no longer be in South Carolina. I will be in Canada for the next 3 weeks. I will still try my best to at least be posting daily on the social media and to do at least a couple of episodes while I'm away, but it is going to be very difficult. So this could very well be the last episode for the next 3 or so weeks. I want to try do one at least this week before this weekend's games. I will be relocating back to Australia at the start of 2024, where I'm originally from. I've spent the last 2 years here in America, following my sports journalism passion. I've started this podcast while I've been in America. I've also started my own sports blog page, which you can go check out in the link down below. I'm returning back to Australia to finish my studies there. And as this is my last episode in South Carolina, I've had a blast being here. Hopefully I'll be back one day, and hopefully I'll be back in America one day to continue my journey. So this is signing off from America. Priceless Takes episode 48. We will see you next time, hopefully in Canada, if not, definitely in Australia. So thank you all for being with me on the journey again. See you later to America. Priceless Takes episode 48. I am your host, Luka Price, and we will see you next time.